Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 286 of the Board Game BBQ Podcast, sponsored by Advent Games. I'm your host, Dana Banana, and today I'm joined by another member of the Brisbane crew, Def, the best teacher in the universe.
Oh, wow. The universe. Thank you, Dana. I saw a comment, though, on Facebook today from another member thanking you for your teachings of a Brisbane Game Day yesterday.
Yes, I saw
so
that.
So you must have been doing a pretty decent job yourself. But thank you.
I don't know. But yes, how are you, Def?
I'm good. I'm very well. Thank you.
Well, I'm excited. And I'm excited and nervous, very, very nervous. I've been nervous for like a week. And I can tell that I'm really nervous because in about the last half an hour, I've been to the toilet 4 times already. So it's absolute shocker. This is what it's like when you turn 50, unfortunately.
The conversations deteriorated very quickly today. That's okay.
So today for Oceania Month, we have none other than Amy and Maggie, who are best known for their YouTube channel, Thinker Thema, where Amy talks about the mechanics and Maggie likes to talk about the theme. So welcome to the podcast, Amy and Maggie.
Thank you so much for having us, our third time on the podcast. Yes. And we're excited to be here with you both because we have never had either of you as hosts.
Yeah, first time
on the podcast. So we're excited to chat about some games.
Also, absolutely no need to be nervous whatsoever.
Not on account of us.
I don't know if there's something else that's happening, but we should
there is the best teacher in the universe on the podcast, apparently.
True.
So
that is true.
I was watching a video. I can't remember when the video was, but I think it was of you, Amy, and you were talking about meeting some board game designers, and then there was a photo of you meeting Mariah Carey and talking about being a fangirl. And I thought, this is going to be so bad. I'm going to be completely pathetic, and I'm going to have to tell Def to give me like a virtual nudge to say, can you just sort of tone it down a bit? Because I'm quite excited about meeting you. And I was watching you, when I was at home with my 3 children during COVID in lockdown sort of thing. So it's weird to think that I'm meeting you here on the podcast.
Well, thank you for watching for so long, but we are no Mariah Carey. So after about 5 or 10 minutes talking to us, you'll just realize that, just regular gamers.
Any possible shine will wear off very quickly.
Just ask Def. He's met us in person.
Yeah. Well, I've met you in person, and I think we played a game together, and I also got a valuable opinion on one of the games that you were playing, Amy, I think, and you were like, you wouldn't like this, Def. Don't buy this.
I believe you were teaching Maggie Escape Plan.
Yeah. Escape Plan, yes.
And I was playing Boon Lake.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I played Boon Lake recently, and I think you were right. It's not my particular cup of tea, so there you go. Having said that, has it been almost 2 years that you guys have been on the podcast? I think Dana has some notes here, and I think it says that you last were on the podcast in August 2022. That's almost 2 years ago. And so it's been quite a long time since then, and I just thought if you'd give us a bit of an update on what you've been up to since then, what has, changed maybe in the channel since then, and any other, shenanigans that you've been doing. I know you've been doing some events that you love doing. So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And in terms of the channel, I think it's same business as usual. We're still making content that we love. We're still reviewing games from the 2 different perspectives of me from mechanics and Maggie from theme. And I guess what we've found over the last 3 years is that a lot of people resonate with that dichotomy. And that has just been something that's so fantastic. The amount of engagement that we get with people, like, I think just like that, like, just don't worry about the theme. I don't need to know what I'm here to do. Just tell me exactly how to win and the mechanics I need to achieve that. And then there's other people that, and especially Maggie, I feel as though the themer element was always underrepresented in board games, like people, in terms of the voices that were out there. And Maggie is just, you know, it's so in love with the story. And over the last few years, so many games of that type have been coming out. So these big narrative games, or at least even the dry Euros now have some kind of story added in.
Attention to the theme and like in the quest for more interesting themes and, you know, more interesting settings as well. And the variety. So that's been really, really nice. And I think there was a lot of obviously themers out there, but it just didn't really have its own kind of category as a name. So a lot of people, will walk up to us and be like, "Oh, I'm more like you, Maggie," or "I'm more like you, Amy." Or often couples will walk up to us and be like, "Oh, like they actually have the same split."
Okay.
Really I think it's actually a word. Like themer is a word. Like in the board gaming dictionary, like people.
It is now.
No, but they do. People talk about board games and they literally use the words thinker and themer, even if we're not talking about Amy and Maggie at the time. So it's become sort of like popular culture in board gaming.
And games have evolved as well, not because of us, but just because of the natural evolution. And so more and more these days, there's games that satisfy us both as well. In terms of the types of content, I suppose we started the channel during lockdown. And it was an escape from the long lockdown that we had here in Melbourne. Yeah. And then I guess we've played with the format of our videos a lot since then. And now when we're trying to balance our lives and our full-time day jobs outside of the hobby, it's really been about just making content that makes us happy. So when we leave it fairly open now. We're just always like whatever takes our inspiration at the time, whatever is making it to our table. So I think now we're a little less structured in terms of we're not running any ongoing series so much. It's just all about having fun. And the events, so the Board Game BBQ events are our favorite events here in Melbourne that we always try to get to. But we missed the last one because we were over at Dice Tower West, which is our favorite overseas convention that we go to every year in Vegas, which is a wonderful week or 5 days of just pure gaming, mostly.
Yeah, I love that one because it's so much about just playing as opposed to like a lot of the other conventions, they're more like an expo and trade type thing where you're there to see all the new releases and buy, like a lot of purchasing, whereas this one is just you go there to play from like 7 a.m. to 3 a.m. where they close the library and then sort of do it all over again the following day. So that's just lots of fun.
I was actually talking to a couple of people at the Brisbane Game Day, which we had yesterday, and they're members of the Joey fam. And they were mentioning that the experience at Essen was quite overwhelming for them. They sort of, at one point, sort of ducked off into a corner to try and just get away from the chaos of the event. And I think that they're glad that they went, but ideally they're hoping to sort of go to Dice Tower West or something like that.
Yes, Essen is a whole different beast. It's more like a trade show. It's actually a very serious con if you compare it to the likes of Gen Con. They're obviously both really big, but Gen Con is more, I think, because it has the tabletop D&D. It's got people dressed up. It's much more about the fanfare and all the events and festival vibe that's going on around it, whereas Essen feels a lot more serious. There's a lot more serious gamers there, just there to get their hands on the latest releases, which is still fun, but it's very intense because it's so big and you're really just shopping the whole time. There's not a lot of playing games, but we did have a Joey fan meet up at Essen and we got a chance to sit down and play a few easy games, so that was nice.
Yeah, people just come, they come to purchase. They've got, big rolling suitcases and they're just there to kind of fill the suitcase and go around. But there isn't even that much space to play. The only space to play is to the areas, the booths that have the demo area for whatever game that publisher is selling, but you don't really have a lot of other kind of tables to just like, sit down and have a game. It's like, no, you're here to like go see these publishers, buy from them, and then kind of move on. Yeah.
Mm. It must be difficult. I've contemplated going to Essen, but I've always thought I have no idea how on earth you get those games back to Australia. It's like it's unbelievable to me that you could possibly get them in a suitcase.
Yeah, it takes a few strategies around. You must punch everything, get rid of all that extra punch card where you do not need it. And then you've got to pack games within games. And you got to get a bit creative, a bit Tetris-like. But that's, we're trained to do that as gamers.
It's both a science and an art form, I feel. Because, there's...
I think Maggie does it, though, doesn't she?
Yeah.
You go to bed, you go to sleep, and then Maggie stays up and does all the packing.
100%. It's like Amy has the best of intentions, and she always kind of has the desire to. And then she's like, I'm just gonna watch you for a little bit. I'm just gonna lie down here, and then you just hear the snoring. I'm like, okay, I guess I'll do it. But I actually really enjoy that. Like, I actually really find it mindful to play around with all the bits and kind of organize the components, punch everything out. So
Maggie's also much more introverted, so when we are at a con, she is more likely to take a break from the day, listen to her body, and then just say, I'm going to go drop some games off at the hotel room and not come back for an hour.
4 hours, 4 hours. That would be me. Yeah.
Exactly. She's having a quick nap. And then she'll come back. So I just push myself too hard. So I do have good intentions to help.
Actually, that's interesting, because we recently had a question of the pod, which was, what part of the hobby do you like the most? And some of the answers that came up was things like sleeving and those mindful activities. And actually, last night I was talking to a friend after the Brisbane game day, which finished at midnight. And I got home about 1 a.m. and for some reason, a friend was messaging me and she was sleeving at 1 o'clock in the morning. And I thought, how strange. But she said she loves it. She just finds it so relaxing. So what do you find is something different that you love about the hobby?
Well, after you. I think our answers will be very different.
Ooh.
Sleeving is not something that we do a lot of. But when I have done it, like, I do enjoy the state of, like, you can kind of get into a bit of state of flow, because then you sort of like the motor skills of like, there's particularly when you have the one size card and the one sleeve and you kind of get into a groove, like that is quite satisfying. I think I just like when a game has a lot of different components. It's more organizing all those different bits, particularly if there's like wooden bits and cards. Like, for example, like the Imperium series, that is just like endless cards because of all of those civilizations. Every time like I finish playing, or when I'm setting it up, I just love fiddling around with the cards and going, oh yeah, this goes in this pile and this goes in that pile. I don't know why I find that super, super satisfying. But I don't know what about.
This is intriguing me that it's so different.
I think because mine's all about just interaction with other people. So Maggie's often like very content. She'd be very happy just playing solo and organizing all of her solo games. Whereas for me, it's really about that moment where you teach someone something that they might not even expect they're going to enjoy, and then you see them having fun and you just get to spend time with people with everyone puts their phones down. Like, it's such an antidote to like modern life board gaming, and that's still my favorite element about it. Is just, it just brings people together in a way that's just distraction free.
What about you, Def?
Well, it's funny you've mentioned that you found odd that some friend was leaving at 1:30 a.m. because I was trying to think, what have I done the last few months after midnight the most? And the answer is setting up Voidfall, which I know is a bit much, but in all honesty, a lot of people said, oh, it's too big, it's, it takes too long to set up. And I actually enjoy that part. I really enjoy setting up the map and all the different bits and, assembling the miniatures and all of that and setting it up. There's something cathartic about some of these exercises. There's something that it either helps me move away from the world in a sense and sort of prepare for the game, if you like, or maybe it's the tactile experience that most of the jobs that we do these days are more about doing things with our heads, or maybe looking at screens, and therefore maybe I miss that bit. Maybe that's why I've moved my piano here at my office. But I really enjoy setting up games. Like it's something that a lot of people I see commenting, in groups that, oh, it's a good game, but it doesn't make it often to the table because it takes too long to set up. And although I understand, I appreciate that, for me that has never been an issue. And it's something that I quite enjoy. It's part of a hobby that I enjoy.
Oh, so every gaming group needs to have a deaf. Is that what
Yeah.
you're saying?
Exactly.
Pretty much, yeah. I can be very useful, yes.
Do you guys sniff board game boxes?
Oh, God.
I'm just curious. There are people out there who sniff them. I sniff them.
Yeah, I was going to say just a friend of mine says, like, I don't know, other people.
I wouldn't say that I go out of my way to like get my nose in there and sniff them, but it's like if you open it or you punch the cardboard and like you just kind of get hit with
that incidental waft.
cardboard, scent. Which game was it recently? I think actually it's Seventh Citadel. That has the one of the maps is like a plastic sleeving thing, and it's got a bit of a funky plastic smell. Apparently, it smells like a brand new volleyball. Allegedly, I haven't actually. We have it, and I think I unpacked, but maybe we don't have that.
Okay.
Yeah, but I saw. Yeah, I saw that and I was like, oh, that's not a pleasant sort of thing. So just be warned. Don't get in there. Yeah.
I feel like unexpected smells are not what you want.
No.
Yeah. No, true.
A reassuring cardboard smell.
Yeah.
I have been sniffing board game. I don't actually go and sniff them all and open all the boxes. It's when I'm opening the box I sniff them. But I have had my mum call and I've heard my daughter answer my phone and say, oh, God, she's sniffing board games.
Okay. I have a question about that. Do they smell differently?
Yes.
And depending on the publisher, they smell very different.
There's distinct smell, yeah.
Yes.
I can confirm this. As the original member of the Cardboard Sniffers Global Club, I can confirm this.
Very official.
It does. Do you grade them?
Yes,
I do. For me,
I do. Yes.
I like the Chip Theory games smell because neoprene and lots of... I don't know. Maybe it's benzene from the plastic. I don't know.
Neoprene?
Just getting high on plastic.
I was just going to say. Who's smelling neoprene?
This discussion is deteriorating very quickly.
Yeah. Do we need to have an intervention?
Actually, Maggie, I'm telling you now, Osprey games smell really good. You have to open that, what was it, Imperium? What was the game you were?
Horizons.
Imperium Horizons. They smell really good, and I think it's because they publish books as well, and they must use good quality cardboard or something. Just sniff it. I'm telling you. No, you've got to stick
right now.
You've got to stick your head right in the box.
Am I being punked?
Don't
worry. I mean, this would make a great podcast. A bunch of people sitting around sniffing boxes. It reminds me of that joke about this dancer that was really successful, but he only danced on the radio. So
it's just like I remember growing up, and like my favorite place in the whole world was like going into a bookstore where you have that like brand new, like that book smell, which is a similar sort of, it's that paper, that fresh kind of cut paper, and it's sort of similar to that, I guess.
Yeah,
nice.
Anyway,
there you go.
Welcome to the world of box sniffing.
Yeah, and now we've started with the best smelling game, so it's all downhill from here.
That's it. Yeah. So, like with your channel, your YouTube channel, where do you see it going? Do you have any
cardboard sniffing?
No, obviously not.
I feel like that
obviously not.
Corner of the market's taken.
But like, do you have a dream or something that it could be something one?
Honestly, it's bigger than we could have ever thought it would be to begin with.
I legit thought that after 3 episodes, Amy would be like, this is so much work. I am out. Because I had done video production before and I knew how much went into all of this. And I'm like, I don't think she realizes how much work this is going to be. But then it still hasn't stopped.
I feel like I am being really positioned to be super lazy in this podcast.
Yeah.
So just putting it out there.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
No, I think that we will just continue doing it for as long as people want to hear from us and as long as we get joy out of it. That's really it. Because it is so much work every week, as you would know, anyone who's out there making board game content, it is a lot of hours behind the scenes. The recording part is the easy part in some ways. It's all of the post-production work, everything there's emails, there's stuff all the time, and I suppose it only makes sense to do it if you are really, really having a good time. And so we question ourselves all the time about that, just to make sure that both of us are in it for the right reasons. And it's given back so much to us, more than we ever expected. So not only a wonderful community, you talked about the Joey fam, but there are a group of people that go to Vegas every year and we meet up together and we just have such a wonderful time. And now that happens spontaneously all over the world, and they meet up with each other too, even if we're not there. And so the community building aspects and all the people we've met that also make content, or board game designers and publishers, like it's just such a wonderful space to be in. And then of course there's the games themselves. So I feel very lucky that we are able to do this, and that we've found, people who enjoy, listening to us ramble on.
Yeah. I didn't anticipate how much more it would, like, doing the channel would make me appreciate gaming. So because you're playing, like, you're not just playing because you're playing and you're having fun, there's this other layer of analysis and going, like you're almost like hyper present when you're playing, or when we're playing, because I'm kind of going, oh, this is fun, or this isn't fun, why, and trying to dissect it so that then we can explain it and relay it when we're covering the game and things like that. So it just means that now, like, when I play, I just have this higher appreciation for the games and the design process, and what it almost like, I like to sort of put myself in the shoes of the designer and go, what were they thinking at this point? Or like, oh, this is so beautiful. It's almost like a piece of art that just sort of reveals itself in front of you. And I just love that. I could have never expected that I would, like, that's something that was to be gained from this process.
Yep.
So it's like even though we don't have any set ambitions of, oh, this is where we want to take the channel, or over here, or over there, it's like, I don't know, like, the best things have just revealed themselves as we've been going through.
I also think not just about games, but about ourselves.
Yeah.
And the whole channel was set up about the differences that we have in how we appreciate games. But I think, and you both can appreciate this, that as you start to learn a lot of games, you realize things about yourself in terms of, oh, I actually really like interaction, or actually, I'm a terrible auditory learner, which is the case for me. Like, I find it very hard to learn in that way. And then that has flow-on effects for the rest of your, like, outside life as well. So I didn't realize that I struggled with color puzzles until we kept playing, and I'm like, oh, why am I really good at that type of puzzle and really bad at that one? And so it really helps you hone in on what your strengths are and your weaknesses are, and then I think that applies to many different parts of your life. And it's just such a great way to learn about yourself, but also to connect with people. So
yeah, it's very interesting to hear you mention that, Amy, because that's something that I can identify with a lot. And I started my journey in the hobby as, the sort of classic passive Eurogamer that likes to sit in his own corner and does his thing. And I know there's other people at the table, but don't bother me with those, and lately, my gaming habits have been dominated by games that have high interaction. But I think that is part of the evolution in yourself, like you said, but also the connections you make in the hobby. I have a regular group now that we know each other really well, and we enjoy games in the same way. And therefore, that's why these games flow really nicely. If you meet up with people that, let's say, politely have a different approach to gaming, then that might not be the best for them. But this is a good segue for this question. Last time we met, like you said, we played Escape Plan together, Maggie, and I think you quite enjoyed that. And I know that you've been playing all sorts of games the last couple of years. Do you feel that your tastes have changed a lot since you were last on the podcast? Like, do you feel that you are different types of gamers than you were a year and a half ago? Because I certainly feel that way.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it feels it's almost like seasons, where you're, like I feel like when we first started, we in the hobby, and we discovered the hobby, it was like you're like, oh my goodness, what is this? And then we realized that we liked heavy games, and we
Yeah.
just went on this path of like, what's heavier and what's heavier than that and what's heavier than that, and it was just like this obsession with what's the heaviest game that we can possibly find.
Mhm.
And then you go through stages where almost like you, in the best possible way, you burn out of that and you go, actually, I really want something lighter. And then you kind of go through a bit of a season where you're playing much lighter games. So, we've gone through seasons of, trick taking is really big at the moment, where we just, you're playing card games, and the card games all of a sudden is like, well, they shine in a different way, because all of a sudden you can play so many different games in one evening, as opposed to just like 1 3-hour, Euro game. And so I feel like I wouldn't say, like, I feel like, yes, my tastes have ebbed and flowed, but yeah, I don't know if I would say it's like, it's almost like I can't say that they won't go back to, like, it's sort of like, this seems to be what I'm into at the moment, but I know that it's going to shift and change. What would you say for yourself?
I would probably say, yeah, one thing that's related to that is probably less heavy games I enjoy more than I used to. Yeah, we used to really love sitting down and, cracking through a 3-hour game and then, hey, let's reset and go again. And it might be just because we play so many games all the time that I appreciate a game now that can get to a table in an hour and we can all have a great time, and then we can move on to something else and get the variety as opposed to the depth maybe of like the old heavy games. Also, I really appreciate party games, light, accessible games, because as you know, in content creation, you're often teaching, or you have, games on you all the time that you can people like, teach us a game. And so I appreciate those style of games more. But the other thing is that I definitely have a stronger appreciation for theme.
I was wondering. So when you first started, I saw you as like far left and far right of politics, like politics. But I was wondering if you had gone into that, you were starting to venture into the middle.
Yeah, absolutely. And
into
I think
the light side, not the dark, into the light side.
And I think it's interesting because I understand much more how Maggie's brain works as a function of making our videos. I've learnt why she needs that layer, and probably by just being associated with that, I've also like, what am I doing? But I don't.
It's a cube. Okay, but what does it do?
Exactly. But I came from abstract games, lots of chess and things, didn't really ever matter to me. So now I would say I totally appreciate a theme. I also really appreciate that other people learn that way. And so when I'm teaching, I always try to start with the theme and like really give it a good go at like explaining what they're doing and why. So that's probably the biggest change for me over time. So yeah, we're probably not as opposed as we once were.
I actually have a lot of trouble with theme. I don't know what it is for me. I'm thinking of a game like Lacrimosa. I don't know if you've played that before.
Yes, we have.
But it's quite odd in the rule book. They describe the actions as like, for example, one of them is like making memories or creating memories.
Yes.
And I remember trying to play it and I just couldn't get it. And I'm thinking, is it just getting a card? Is that what it is? What are we actually doing? And I just find it very difficult with theme. And even when I'm teaching, I even find it very hard. I think I mentioned to you in Discord, Amy, that I'm thematically dumb. There's something wrong with me.
That's called being a thinker.
AKA.
I think that thematic terminology I still really struggle with as well. And I do think there's an interesting distinction between a game being thematic because it feels like what, the context and what you're in, it feels like you're doing what they're saying that you're doing versus theme that is like pasted on language.
Yeah.
And when it's just pasted on language, I also find it really hard to bring those two back
Same
together.
with me. I feel like that actually gets more in the way of just enjoying the game and going through the game. And it's not really a thematic connection. So it's almost, I feel like I have an undercover themer within myself, that, and I say undercover because it's like, I know if I'm playing a game, the quicker I can pick it up, usually it'll be an immediate clue to me of how thematic it actually is, because I need to be able to connect the logic of, oh, of course, I would need to get this thing before I can go over there to do this thing before I can go. So that's why sometimes, probably a recent example was Weather Machine, the Lacerda one. That was like this has a lot of theme on the surface, but when you're playing it, there's absolutely no real, at least I couldn't find it, connection between, like, a lot of things is almost like it's just because. And so that's when I know it's like, oh, actually, it just means that even though there's a theme over the top of it, it's not an organically thematic flow of why things interconnect with one another. So yeah, that's so that's where I would go. Sometimes when if a designer or a production throws a lot of thematic terms, but the flow itself doesn't make a logical sense, I wouldn't call that a thematic game.
Yeah, great. And I think Lacrimosa that Dana mentioned is a good example of a Euro that is trying to be thematic, but there's no real connection between the language it uses and the actions that actually happen in the game. Versus maybe outside of Weather Machine, I know a few people have had issues with its theme, but most of the Lacerda games are extremely well intertwined between their theme and their mechanics. And at least for me, that's why I always seem to be, quite easy for me to learn, because they make sense.
I found when you taught Escape Plan, I was like, that all made sense to me. Like that all absolutely, the reason why everything was happening the way it's happening is like, that feels really thematic. So yeah.
When we had Vital on the show, it's funny you should mention that. This is a funny story. When we had Vital on the show, at the start of the Board Game BBQ podcast, I asked him how does he start his design process. He said, I always start with a theme dev, which made for a very interesting question. Then, so how did you design Escape Plan? Did you rob a bank? But it did highlight that aspect of, you have to understand what it is that you're actually doing and then translate that to a design rather than the other way around. And I think some games do that better than others. For example, Lacrimosa, I don't think it does a particularly great job.
Usually thematic, no.
No.
So,
yeah. I appreciate the setting, and it makes it,
Oh yeah, I'm a huge fan.
It's easier for me to then kind of spend time in it. But yeah, I wouldn't say that it's like a thematic experience. Yeah, with Lacrimosa.
I was curious to know, because I've watched a lot of your videos lately, but I was curious to know, when you started this channel, you were talking about wanting to represent diversity, and with women and the LGBTQ community, and I'm wondering, so that was back in 2020. And now it's 2024. So in 4 years, do you see it getting better? Do you see it's better?
Oh, absolutely. 100% better. And it's better from multiple perspectives. There's a lot more content creators, a lot more diversity in content creators. I still wish there were more, but hopefully, when you see...
It's growing.
Yeah, when you see gender diversity, or you see queer people putting themselves out there, just anything, people of color, like when people see people that look like them or sound like them or are like them, they feel more confident to go out there and do it themselves. So that has certainly been changing at a rapid pace, and it's fantastic to see. And then, of course, from the publisher's perspective, I think representation in gaming is also improving from multiple perspectives as well. So people are getting the right types of inputs early in the design process when we're talking about theme, getting cultural consultants in, or if it's about a particular group of people, getting input from experts. I think that has really improved as well, particularly since we started. I think it's changed incredibly. It feels like such a short amount of time, but I think the hobby has grown, and it's had to evolve because the world is evolving
Yes.
around it, and it actually was probably a little bit behind in terms of, you know, video games and other hobbies. And so there's a lot of catch up to do. There's still work to be done, but yes, I think it's definitely improved. I think people always talk about the contribution that, or the impact we've had in the hobby, and it's so strange to think about that that's just from being ourselves.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, and the start of every episode, I say, my name is Amy, this is my wife, Maggie. Started as partner because we got married along the way. But I think that is a subtle thing that we do, that we purposely do at the start of every episode. And it's to say, we're in this space, and if you're like us and in this space, that's okay too. And hopefully it's just more people doing that allows people to even turn up at a game day when they might think that they'll turn up and there's going to be people that will accept them for who they are. And like, you know, that's incredibly special to us and still a key driver.
Yeah.
We certainly see that in our game days, and I think that does have a lot to do with increasing the awareness in that space. And I think this is why it is incredibly important to have these, additional people that provide that awareness, because a lot of the people are simply just, not in that headspace. And I think that has changed significantly over the last couple of years. And I think the fact that the board game hobby overall has increased its, I don't know if velocity is the right word, but you know what I mean? Like there's more games, there's better games, there's games you never thought would have been even possible now being made almost on a monthly basis, but also so much community is building around this hobby now that it is inevitable to catch up to where the world needs to be. But it is very important to have these contributions, because we see the impact. Like I physically see the people showing up at the game days, the diversity is increasing, and it's fantastic to see, because a lot of these people may not have been able to join these events in the past for various reasons that were not at their control.
This it's had a huge impact on me, because I sort of have come from early in my board gaming. I was a stay-at-home mum, kids at a private school and Catholic. And you only sort of get, I'd just say, access to a certain group of people. And I never really fit in. I was always weird. And you can probably tell that anyway from the podcast.
Well, you still are, so it's fine.
Yeah. I'm a bit weird. Anyway, but since joining this board game community, I have never felt so welcome and accepted, and I'm just going to say the term in place. That's probably not a very good way to describe it, but I feel like I've found my place in this world, and the people that I've met, I would never have had the opportunity to meet, and I'm so grateful for it, that it's opened my eyes to a completely different groups of people in this world and how special they are. It's been absolutely wonderful for me, and you are part of that, So yeah, I thank you for that. Anyway,
Oh,
that's my fangirl moment. Okay,
that is really beautiful.
Def, nudge me.
No, it's okay. I've told both Amy and Maggie how I feel about them being upfront and honest and their contribution in person, so they already know that.
I think the power of the board game community, though, is exactly what you just described. There's a real come as you are, because we're all here to, appreciate this game, and it brings so much diversity to the table. And it's just, that was really special that you said that. And I think a lot of people feel that way. We certainly feel that way too. We have corporate jobs outside of the board game content world, and it's just even that little difference is like, I can be so much more myself in this space, and same with Maggie. So we've found a lot of peace in who we are as well in this community.
So just out of interest, because there's been a lot on YouTube lately about negative reviews, and that even one video from another channel sort of said, no, we need negative reviews. They're good for the hobby. Do you feel that that's true?
Yes, I believe in honest reviews 100%. I don't believe in being unnecessarily horrible to a game,
like shock value,
throwing games in the trash, and that type of antic is just that's someone's life work. That's
someone's baby, someone's creative baby, So.
But of course, people tune into reviewers so that they can identify someone who has similar taste to them, so that they can make sound purchases. For sure, I would also say that a lot of reviewers are purchasing their own games as well. And so there is a systematic bias that happens because we are responsible for choosing our own games most of the time, or even if we're taking on games and publishers, we're still choosing them. We're still.
Well, that's because we're humans, not because we're content creators. So you know what I mean?
100%. So, and we spend so much time doing investing in it too. And in our case, we don't get paid by publishers, so we're buying games and then we're wanting to enjoy them. And so when people say, why aren't you more negative? It's a lot of the games, they are good. Some of them are more likely to be for us than others, and we talk about that fact. I think that it's really hard to make a really long video about a game you don't enjoy. And that is because it comes across really, your energy is flat. You don't want to be too throw it in the trash and this weird negative energy. So it ends up being quite flat content that is actually not that interesting to listen to.
Yeah, that's right.
So often I feel it's different audiences. There are channels that do very well with their audience by being very negative and sort of that's their shtick in a way. It's kind of going, having that, that ranty sort of vibe. But it's that's not us.
Yeah.
And so we try and be fair. So it's when we're never going to hype up a game that we don't enjoy. And if we didn't enjoy them, there's things that it's we're going to say, this is not for us for these reasons. But there's also a very real realization that we've had, and also just a fact of life, that just because we really did not enjoy a game doesn't mean that there isn't a whole lot of the other people who will love it. So I feel we kind of have this approach of, it's our responsibility to showcase if what we liked about it, not just this game is great, go buy it, is it because the things that I enjoy you may not enjoy, so you go off and you buy it and you hate it. So when we say we love a game, we say why we loved it, because then you might go, oh, actually that doesn't sound something that I would enjoy, something that, so then you're better able to make the decision. And I think the best reviews that we have about our videos is when in the comments you can see both sides of people going, you've explained it so well that I know that this is going to be a perfect game for me and my gaming group, and you've explained it so well that I know this is not going to work for my gaming group, even though I will love it. And so that sort of thing that means that it was a fair and gave you a good idea of what's to be expected with this experience when you open that box.
So we've got some contributor questions, or some Patreon questions, actually. Def, do you want to?
Yeah, sure. Lee Perrott is asking, what percentage of games in your collection have you rated as part of your 10 out of 10 series? Are you on target to have rated every game in your collection by the year 2050?
2050.
I feel
that sounds achievable.
Yeah, that sounds impressive.
Well, that is taking into account your current collection, I'm assuming.
It is.
Not
just the problem is the rate of acquisition is above and beyond the rate of culling currently. So there may be no end to the series, and we do say that in just about every episode. But we are trying. The idea of the series was to rate everything so we could find out what our top 10 are, because we've never done our top 10 games ever. Yeah. So the idea was to work through to get to that. So we will get there. We just
eventually.
To answer the question, I feel like we just say
what percentage?
30%?
Oh, I think that would be. I think that's
generous.
Too high.
Way generous. Yeah, maybe 20%.
Yeah, knowing that it's a sliding number because there's obviously, games are being added to it. So it's,
That's a nice attempt to save it, but I don't think that's anywhere near 30%, Maggie.
Probably not, Maggie,
I don't think.
Wishful thinking.
But it's like, I'm trying to think, how many of those have we done? It's like, we've already covered like hundreds
160. 160.
How many games do we have? Like,
It's
Do
fluctuates.
you even know how many games you actually have?
We do not know.
No.
Is that on purpose that you just don't want to know?
I think I would be shocked and horrified. So I don't want to know. I don't know. I don't think too many. I think nothing crazy.
I know that there's people with definitely bigger libraries than us.
Yeah.
Well, I saw this video from a stand-up comedian like just a couple of days ago on Facebook saying, I own too many board games to date. And then he asked the audience, said, hey, how many games do you think is too many? And somebody said 20. And he said, do they make 20 board games?
Oh, no. Oh, no.
No. You can't really call yourself a board game.
Oh, God.
What did they mean by too many then?
Yeah. Who knows?
What games do you even have?
Do you still buy games? Do you actually still
we
buy
all
do.
the time? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
We buy a lot of games. Actually, we have a friend going to Japan next week, and he said, do you want me to look for anything in particular? He's not really a gamer. And I sent him a list of like 20 games.
Group chat, and I just see it's like there's like 5 games, and then it's like, wow, that's a lot. And then there's like a part 2 to the list, and then the part 3. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, this poor friend of ours is just going on a short holiday.
Right. Forget the holiday. It's game shopping.
Yeah. Focus, please.
Yeah.
We also have another question from Draven, and he says they've done a lot of conventions around the world, as in they think Athena.
Mm-hmm.
What are you most excited for about PlayCon? Our first.
Oh, yes, we are so excited about PlayCon. We've been telling everybody overseas, actually, because Americans are always really intrigued to learn about the Australian board gaming community, because they're like, do you have anything over there? Do people play games over there?
Do you have shops?
Yes. Yeah, a lot of the time they're like, surely you have no games because of shipping, which is kind of true.
Isn't too far from the truth, to be fair.
Yeah, exactly. But yes, so we've been telling everyone that we're so excited to finally have, this really big focus on bringing a big convention to Sydney, and we're really excited to attend. What was the question? What are we most excited about?
Yeah.
I think it's just bringing the community, the Australian community together, because there's lots of like localized events, I feel, in Australia, but I don't feel like there's like a central one where everyone travels from everywhere to go to. And I know, PlayCon is your first year, but no doubt it's just going to grow and grow and grow. And that's, what we hope is that everyone has it marked in their calendar at the start of every year, and everyone knows that they're coming from wherever they're coming from around Australia to attend, or even New Zealand.
Oh, that sounds so good that, you're excited about it, because to be honest, I thought you've been to Dice Tower West and you've been to all these conventions, you've been to Essen. Maybe we're just, the convention that we're going to be running is going to be sort of like small fry sort of thing.
Oh, no, you know what? I think the Board Game BBQ days that you do in capital cities are so incredible because of the passion of everybody that's involved, and, your volunteers, but everyone on the podcast. And it's just, there's a vibrancy to the events that is so welcoming that anyone can turn up. And I've seen so many people turn up who, they haven't really played board games, and you're also generous with your time. And I just see PlayCon being an extension of that generosity and that spirit of like, come one, come all, and like, we're going to get you into board gaming.
We're going to recruit you into the cult.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
I'm just really looking forward to it becoming an established thing, just like, the Dice Tower West stuff, or like, a Gen Con, or as in probably won't be the size of a Gen Con yet, but it's just it becoming that thing that, every year there's this thing that's going to be on, and people kind of mark it on their calendars, and they want to make sure that to do the trip and have a great, few days of playing and discovering stuff and meeting people. I think that's the main thing. So that's what I'm most excited for, it to become like the Australian con, because we don't really have
Yeah,
anything
lots
like
of
that.
localized ones.
Yeah,
but
little, yeah.
But I feel like after talking to your team, I feel like you're ambitious about it, and you've got to start somewhere, and it will continue to grow.
Yeah, well, we're hoping so anyway.
Yeah.
Not a question. This is not a question, but one of our community members who you may know is Stacey Robinson. And she said she just wanted to make a comment, and she said, I just want to praise Thinkathema for the Joey fam community that they have cultivated. My experience meeting them and the other members of the community at Essen last year reiterated just how genuinely lovely the Joey fam members are, and to keep up the good work.
Aww,
Love heart emoji.
That's so nice. Yeah. The Joey fam has grown bigger than us, honestly.
Yeah.
It's just a community in and of itself. We just happen to be a part of it these days.
Or like the excuse for the, you know, the banner, but like really the community has like a life of its own, really, which is really beautiful.
Hey guys, just popping in to remind you about our awesome sponsor, Advent Games. Now I know every week we talk about their amazing range of games, but did you know that they also have a huge range of RPG books, game inserts, organisers, sleeves, even miniatures and scenery to make your next game night an experience to remember. And as always, shipping is a flat $10 if you live in the Sydney metro area and $15 for the rest of Australia. And don't forget, if you sign up for their newsletter, every Friday you receive an email with the latest specials, newest arrivals, and all the games that have just come back into stock. So there's no excuse for missing out on that game that you desperately want in your collection. So why not grab your next Sizzling game from Advent Games? Head to adventgames.com.au now.
So normally now we sort of talk about a game that we've enjoyed, that we've recently played. Do you have a specific game maybe that you might like to talk about, or anything?
Oh, yeah, we have a couple of games, one old and one new.
Ooh,
love it.
Yeah, the old game came from at Dice Tower West. They do a flea market, and I'm notorious for being in line at that flea market as early as possible, and also have some members of the Joey fam that come along to help me carry the games I buy, because it's really cheap, because in Australia,
is it cheap labour?
Well,
it's free labor. So yeah, that is.
These are my game carriers. I can take them with me everywhere I go.
They are wonderful. And it's become a bit of a tradition. But basically, games there are super cheap, and there's like, because in Australia games really hold their value.
Yes.
Secondhand games in America is not as the case as much. You can get some bargain games, and everyone brings their games to offload them, and you just walk around. And I was in there for an hour and a half this time, and just there were so many good gems. And one of the gems was a Freedom and Freeze game called Feierabend, which
is it like finishing time? I think it's a translation. So it's like, it's all about the end of the work week and what you do with the workers in your factory. Your workers are all stressed out, and it's really about trying to make them more relaxed and bring their stress levels down through a series of after work activities. So, you know, some of them are going to want to go on, go running, or some of them will go to the pub, or some of them will go on blind dates and get partners potentially. So, but then the whole game, it's a very, very simple worker placement. So it's very easy to teach, even as a gateway, I feel, to non-gamers. But the whole time, one of the resources is these strike tokens that you can use to strike for better working conditions. So it's actually like a really interesting layer of, you know, you're helping them have fewer hours in their week, or striking for leave so that they can take holidays. And once you actually get them to have holidays, that gives you a lot of relaxation. So that's really good, because that's like, relaxations are essentially like the points in the game. Or even pay gap equality between genders is the other thing that you can strike for. So it's like, it's such a quirky theme, but it actually works really, really well and really, really simply. And the actual core play of it is this really satisfying grind of like, what are the levers that I can pull to try and race to get my workers to be, you know, relaxing, trigger end of game.
From a worker placement perspective, it's extremely tight as well. And so you are constantly evaluating, well, you know, I kind of want to take that action over there, but I should get that one before anybody else does. And so it's all about the timing, and everyone is just making these moves one after another, and there's no rounds to the game. So you reset your workers individually when you run out of workers, because it is possible to place more than one worker. And the game ends when someone gets to 40 rest points. So it's a race, but you're also trying to time that correctly so that nobody else can catch up. So it's just a really interesting dynamic, but it has this really quirky theme where you get partnered up, and then you've got these partners that can go out and do couple activities with you. It's
so
just
they get even more relaxation when they get to kind of enjoy their after hours
each other's
together.
company.
Yeah, because there's like a motel as well. We won't go into details, but
it's interesting you talk about strikes, because maybe the Joey fan might go on strike after hearing this.
Yeah.
Well, looking at some photos of this game, it looks quirky as well. So if it plays, if it has quirkiness in the mechanic, it just looks so different. And I think looking at it was published in 2020, so it's not an old game, as in 20 years old, but it does look very, very different to other worker placement games.
Yes.
It reminds me more like the appearance of it gives me more like Tolkien vibes rather than
because
other worker placement games.
Yeah, it has 3 round as in circular boards, as well as other boards. But these 3 circular boards, when you're playing at a lower player count, they almost have like no reason to be that large because there's so few worker placement spots on each of them. So
2/3 of the wedge are not being used. Yeah, because it plays up to 6, which is actually quite a high player count for a worker placement type URE game. It plays solo as well, but I wouldn't recommend it solo because you kind of have a die that you're throwing to try and replicate what the second player would do, but it's not ideal. It's best, I'd say, at the higher player counts, because then you get the chaos of the worker placement blocking each other type thing.
Just to reiterate, the name of the game is Feierabend?
Yes, which is finishing time.
Yeah. Did you know about this game before you bought it, or you saw it and you said, "Oh, it's Friedman free, so I'll have a crack at it"? I
saw it and I knew actually Maggie had mentioned that she wanted to play it, so I bought it I brought it back to Maggie. She said, "I have no idea what this game is."
I have goldfish memory and with a lot of things, and I'll be like, "Oh, this sounds amazing," and then Amy will be like, "Here, we got it." I'm like, "What? I've never seen this in my life." Like,
what's this? What'd you buy that for?
Yeah, exactly. And then, of course, everybody thinks it's just my attempt to make me feel better about all my other purchases. It's like, oh, sure, you bought it for Maggie.
Yeah. But the other way also happens where you're like, hey, should we get this? I'm like, nah. And then later I'm like, oh, that game sounds really interesting. You're like, I was telling you about it. I was going to back it. I'm like, oh, really? I don't remember this. No, I don't think this conversation took place. Yeah.
Did you have a game as well, Maggie?
Well, the other game, it's a newer game, and it's a little card game called Pixies, which it's got the quirkiest is it quirky? It's like the artwork is really photographs of these little, they're not quite pixies. They're like
gum nut babies, if you know from Australia.
So there's this artist who takes found objects. So some of them are things from nature. So it might be like acorns or little seeds or, leaves and things, and makes this kind of creepy but also cutesy little creatures out of them, and then takes photos of them in nature. And so that's what the cards are. But the game itself is really, really simple. You have like a grid of 9 spots. They're numbered, and then you're kind of drafting cards, trying to put them in the right places. They all have different colors, so sometimes you're trying to do a run of colors connected. But yeah, it's one of those games that
it's an extremely accessible game, but actually it's the latest game from Bombix. So they've been on a run lately with little card games. So they obviously did Sea, Salt and Paper. They did Knar.
Did they do Sea, Salt and Paper?
Yes, they did. And they
Alawa.
Also did Alawa as well, which is another great little resource management game. But this one is kind of the next game from them in the same tiny box as Sea, Salt and Paper. the box that is really hard to open again if you close it with nothing in it. Oh my goodness, impossible. So don't do that with Pixies either. But yeah, really easy. You're open drafting. The cleverness is that the round continues until someone fills up the space for 9 cards. So you've got 1 to 9 and they have to be placed in the position according to their number. But then you can also, if you had a 9 and you draft another 9, you're going to put it underneath the 9, and then the one on top is now validated and you're going to score 9 points. So you're trying to, I suppose, force people to take things that they don't need because the spots are already filled. And then you're also trying to validate as many cards as you can as well. It's really easy to teach. I can see that it's going to probably blow up like the rest of their card games do because it's just got that right balance of satisfying crunch, but extremely easy to get to the table. So that's one that we've just been like carrying on us at all times at the moment. So when someone says, do you have a game you can teach? It's like, yeah. Look at this cute art. I'm going to teach you this little cute card game, Pixies. So, yeah, really interesting design.
It's good to hear about these smaller games because I think, Amy, I kind of, relate when you said that you appreciate lighter games a bit more. I found that I have a much higher appreciation about games, not necessarily lighter, but that can achieve a smart or a an interesting outcome with a small bunch of components, with just a bunch of cards or a couple of things, and the best example I have for that is a game I've been playing lately on BGA called Dracula versus Van Helsing.
Oh yes, good game.
It's just a simple sort of trick-taking kind of game. All it is a bunch of cards and a couple of components, and I just think that achieving a good game and an interesting experience with a small part of components, I think we're going to be seeing more of that in the future.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, look at Gloomhaven, the tiny buttons and what's it called?
Yes.
Oh yeah,
buttons and bugs. Why is it called buttons and bugs?
Because
bugs?
you're shrunk.
Bugs?
You're shrunk, so you're now.
Oh, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids situation.
Very much
Oh no!
scenario,
really?
Yeah. You're just battling away, and you're in a miniature micro size.
No, God. Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Def, what have you been playing?
Well, it's interesting because
we're going to go from small, like really small games, to huge.
I've been appreciating lighter, quick games, he says, while wanting to talk about Weimar, the fight for the Republic. I mean, I don't even know where to start with this, except to say that it has been an interesting experience because we did it together, Dana, and this is something that you're not usually into. No. You don't usually play, and you kind of had it as your mission to play some games that are outside of your wheelhouse this year.
Yeah.
This is probably as far as it can go. So Weimar, the fight for the Republic, if you don't know about this game, was a game that went on Kickstarter, I think last year or maybe the year before that. It's all about the years between when the German Reich was established as a republic in shortly after the war and just before Hitler's, well, up to the Workers' Party, Hitler taking power in Germany, and basically meaning the end of the republic. So 1918 to 1933, I guess. And I think what I want to start with this is, I don't usually do this, but the theme here is the most important thing. This is what draws me into these historical games, right? Because I know a lot about this period because my grandfather was in the military and he fought in World War II, and I have his diary from the front that he kept every night. So that's quite a read. But this game, I think, achieves a lot to bridge the gap between war games, traditional war games that we usually, board gamers or modern people that play modern board games wouldn't go anywhere near. Those kinds of games that old school war gamers put up on the wall and they, play for weeks. And I'm like, I'm not getting out of the chair unless I finish the game. What do you mean? So I think this game, if people give it a chance, it can achieve that bridging the gap a little bit. It's an asymmetric political war game where you have the 4 different factions. So you have the 2 sort of factions that are more close to the center, or the more democratic factions, the Catholic center and the democratic left, and you have the 2 radical parties, the far right and the communists, fighting for different parts of that era's society. And the game is it loans a lot of mechanics from games that have been extremely successful in the hobby for many years, like Twilight Struggle. So it has a card play mechanic where you play a card and you choose to use it for the event of the card or for its action points, and you take actions. But I felt that it achieves to get you sucked into the theme in a very, very successful way. Like you feel the tension in every corner. The 4 factions, they have completely different goals in the game. Government parties want to, govern. They want to make sure that the society, is prosperous. There's economic stimulation. The radicals are kept to, to their places. They don't cause too much trouble. And the other factions, they have the opposite. They have the opposite goals. And there's a very interesting connection between 3 different, I would call them theaters of war or theaters of operation. One is the parliament, where the 4 parties are trying to, get as many seats in parliament as they can. There's the streets of Germany, where it's represented by these party bases, these meeples that they use to show how many party bases each faction has its party has in different cities of Germany. And you have this opinion track, which is like a 2x's section of the board, where different issues that are of interest in German society at that point are being discussed and debated, and whoever wins the topic gets to resolve it in a way that is preferable to what their factions goals are. For me, this has been an absolutely fantastic experience. I had the game loaned to me by one of Dana's friends, because I didn't have a copy at the time. I do now. And
can I just give Amy and Maggie some context as to how you came to get the game?
Sure.
Because, okay, so my oath was to play this game, and I tried with a friend who had a copy, and it was so hard. Honestly, we tried for hours with 4 people, with 4 of us, and we were just lost. We were just completely lost. We tried again, just the 2 of us playing 2 different factions. We were equally lost. And I actually had to message Def and say, "Can you please help me? I don't know what I need you to learn this game." And it was amazing. This is why I call him the best teacher in the universe, because he literally, I don't know, you inhaled that game, and he already had it set up. I gave it to him, and he already had it set up on the table that night, and he'd already played by himself, sort of overnight. And he said, "So when do you want to play?" And I went, "Oh my God." So anyway, needless to say, I felt really dumb.
Oh my goodness. Where do we get a Def?
I feel very lucky. But that's how he got the game anyway. Oh, God.
That is amazing. How long does one game of this epic?
Well, you'd be surprised, because I thought we were in for a full day when we planned to play this, right? The game's suggested playtime on the box, which we all know counts for nothing, says 360 minutes. So 6 hours. That's pretty bold. Games usually underestimate the playtime on the box, listed on the boxes. So when I saw 6 hours on the box, I was like, "Oh, hang on." And when I played it by myself to learn the rules, it took me 3.5 hours to play 2 rounds. And the maximum the game goes on for is 6 rounds. So I was like, yeah, we're going to be here all day. But the game works in a way that, similar to completely different game, but same premise, John Company, where it could potentially go on for the full 6 rounds, or it could end prematurely if one of the factions achieves their instant win condition. Not all of the factions have that. And it's usually the radical factions that if they cause too much instability in the Reich, the game would finish. Things like that. So our first game took 3 or 3.5 hours, and everybody immediately kind of went, we need to set this up and play it again right now, which we did. And the second game went on for a bit longer, went for I think 4 or 4.5 hours, and we managed to get a lot further into that game. I think the third round maybe. So it has, this potential of being a long game, but from what I've seen, the government factions, for the government factions to be able to keep the game going for 6 rounds would take significant effort. So I think, you'd expect, a 4 or 5 hour game for sure, but I don't think this game would go on for much longer than that. So it's been absolutely fantastic for me. I completely loved it. The production quality is mind-blowing. It's for a game of that small niche, that targets a very small audience, the production quality is phenomenal. Of course, the game is extremely expensive, but it has a double-layered main board, and everything is really nice, and the cards are well laid out. They've done a really good job with it. The rulebook, is very good. It has some very small issues, but other than that, like I learned the game straight from the rulebook. It's been very, very well done. I'd be sad if this game doesn't find its way into a bigger distribution somehow, or retail. Maybe, I don't know. This is quite a big game, but what did you think, Dana? This was the first game of this type that you played.
Yes. Honestly, I would never even look twice at a game like this. And I've declared this year, 2024, as the year of Dana. Now, that sounds really selfish, but it's really just about me opening my mind to other games, because I have a tendency to like games that are very attractive, smell good, and that go well with a cheese platter or something like that. So they're probably a little bit on the medium side, that kind of thing.
That's how I picked Amy when we started dating.
Cheese? Cheese? She likes cheese?
Well, with a cheese platter. Medium side, yeah. Same criteria. So,
checks out.
Relatable.
So honestly, I really struggled, as I said, learning the game. And I can see why, if someone were to pick this up, because it was a Kickstarter.
Yeah.
If someone were to pick this up and attempt it without maybe having an experience, I think Def has mentioned like maybe having experience with a coin game. Would that be right, Def? It's sort of.
I think so, or any card-driven war game, like Twilight Struggle or Imperial Struggle. They have the same main premise, I guess, from what drives the actions in the game.
So I hadn't had any experience with any of those types of games. So I can see that a lot of people would give up, because this has been my oath for like 3 podcasts, and it just goes on and on and on like a marathon. And I think I've achieved it now after trying to play it. But I did love it. I must admit, I did love it, and I'm actually going to play it again, but only 2-player. And this is the limitation of the game. One limitation of the game is that it is 4 players.
4 players only.
Yeah, not like Hegemony, where you could play with 2 players.
Okay.
And so it's very difficult to get to the table. Extremely difficult.
Is this now a gateway game for you into wargaming?
No, I actually don't enjoy conflict at all. But I would just say this, is that these types of games, it makes such a big difference, the people that you're with,
yes,
that you're playing these types of games with. Like, I could have played with people who were not patient and who didn't explain the game well, and and it could have been a completely different experience. But the people that I was playing with were very, very, as I said, very patient, and I made it my mission to be open-minded about it. And I think that is actually a huge thing in board gaming, is to have an open mind.
Right.
Yeah, to have an open mind to certain types of games that you wouldn't normally play, and not limit yourself to just a particular theme or a particular mechanic or whatever, because you're actually missing out on some amazing experiences along the way if you do that. I don't know if you think that at all.
Definitely agree.
Yeah.
Have you guys played this game?
No.
You've played Hegemony, though?
Yes.
We have.
Okay.
But
Yes.
Hegemony sounds a lot lighter than this game. Like a lot lighter.
Yeah,
And you play Hegemony in what, under 2 hours?
Oh, no. Probably not. Probably 2 to 3. Yeah.
2 hours, I
But
reckon, so.
yeah, I don't know. Maybe it seems, I don't know if it seems lighter or not. I have no point of reference for this game because I've never seen it before, the one you're talking about, but it sounds complex. But also,
There's a lot of game there. I don't want to come out like, some people say this is an easy game. It only has 465 pages of rules you have to go through. None of that, you'll be fine. There's a lot going on, but I think that it's a good testament when people that are not in this part of the hobby play this and say they loved it and they want to play it again, and they in fact playing it again. And I think it's a testament of if it's presented in the right way and if it's played in the right context, that hey, we're kind of all new to this. We're learning it together. We're into this to experience the game and learn more about the historic context of it. We're not here to win kind of situation. I think that plays a significant role in how you experience these games. In fact, I think that this is an easier game to grasp than the games that Dana mentioned, which is the Coin series from GMT, which is like a I would say kind of a standard in that genre of war games now. I think this is an easier game to grasp, and especially for Eurogamers, because it flows in the same way. You have a hand of cards, you play a card, you do what the card says, or you do actions. That's it. So there's a lot of layers to it, though. But I think that by the maybe the end of the first round, we all knew what we were doing, and by the end of the first game, we had full grasp of the game, and we knew what we had to do well in the game, which is all you can ask from a complex game.
Mm. It was certainly an experience that I'll remember for a long time. And I'm so grateful to have had it. Yeah.
There you go. So that's Weimar, The Fight for Democracy, designed by Matthias Kramer.
We're going to move on to the question of the pod. So our question of the pod for the week was, which historical setting would you like to see made into a board game? And actually, we had some very interesting answers. And this is going to lead into our next question of the pod as well, because I'm making myself sound really stupid. But anyway, because I've mentioned the word dumb twice, but I am not a history buff at all. I know nothing about history. So just reading some of these comments on Discord and Facebook, it was quite fascinating, because I actually got online and started reading about some of these historical...
How did that happen? What was that period?
Yeah, I'd never even heard of any of these things.
Am I being punked? Is that a real thing? Yeah.
Well, actually, some of the answers, I have to tell you, were so intricate that I thought, if I have to read that on the podcast, I don't even think I can pronounce the names of the things that they were talking about. So I had to leave them out. So for those people, they were great answers, but I had no idea what was going on. But so first of all, we have on Facebook, we have James Ewing said there's a couple of wars that absolutely need a board game. And the first one was the Great Emu War. And the second one was the Glasgow Ice Cream Wars. Now, have you ever heard of anything like that before? No. You're giving me that blank look, Amy.
Yeah, I am not a history buff at all. In fact, I'm not even like a history novice. So, don't look this way.
I'd never heard of it, but apparently the Emu Wars was a military operation in Western Australia, and it was in the 1930s. And emus were becoming a problem for farmers. They were ruining crops. And so it was literally a culling of emus. And it was this full-on operation with the military tasked to kill emus with machine guns.
It feels a bit, because I feel like the emus didn't really know that they were at war. I guess they figured it out eventually, but it's like,
oh, look, I'm looking at your faces and you're like, got this look of dread.
Versus emu.
Yeah. It would be like a fair war.
Is it like a tower defense game? Just like troves of emus coming through?
I'm wondering that, honestly, I read up about this game and, about this period of time. And believe it or not, they didn't really even succeed against the emus. The emus were smarter than the military.
So I want it to be asymmetric, and I can play as the emus.
Well, we recently covered Battle of Versailles, which was a real, well, not war, but it was kind of like a fashion event that took place. And in that, it was essentially like France versus the US, and the US wins, and it is very asymmetric. It's a two-player only game.
Yeah.
And it is, one of our criticisms was it's actually very, very difficult to win as France, because the game is sort of weighted historically to favor the actual winners, who were like, the US in that period. But so in this case, you'd have to have the emus be
advantage.
like overpowered. So it becomes really, really difficult to rewrite history and not have the emus win.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But it's almost humorous, isn't it? The fact that the emus had these
I'm all about this
against a machine gun.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's very it's probably a bit of a miserable topic, but anyway, I found it quite fascinating reading about it.
I think they can run quite fast.
Yeah.
Yes.
Only in Australia could this happen. Our next answer on Facebook was from Taryn Hoffman. She would like to have a board game about the life of a convict at Port Arthur in Tasmania. And you could gain favour and ultimately your freedom if you play your cards right, and then go on to the secondary aspect of your life, hopefully as a useful citizen in the 1800s in Australia. So I don't think there's not many Australian historical games. Def, you would probably know, but none that come to mind anyway. Are they?
No, I mean, I don't claim I'm a massive expert in historic games, but I do enjoy my European history. But I don't know many Australian ones. Sorry.
I don't think there are that many.
No.
Yeah.
Or combat games for that matter. Like, are there like prison type games? Like, there's like escape type games, but not set in a particular
setting. Yeah.
I'm surprised that there isn't like Alcatraz, thing. But.
Yeah, that would be good.
Well, a couple of additional answers. Kenny Michael Otten said, I would love to see more East Asian political games introduced. The interactions between Korea, Japan, and China during the late 19th, early 20th century had huge ramifications throughout the world, but I feel like nobody knows what went on. And he says, I've got a game spinning around that revolves around this. And then Jill says, scuttling in Manchester, England in the 1890s, urban street gangs with names like Meadow Lads and the Grey Mare Boys would wear flamboyant clothes and engage in fights known as scuttles. The young men's leather belts were their most prized possessions, wrapping them around their wrists, and by which they would attempt to disfigure their opponents, how lovely, with the buckles decorated by pictures of things like scorpions and snakes. Wow. Okay.
Oh, my God. It's quite interesting, like to hear about what people would like in a board game. And there was another comment that I didn't actually put on, but about all the horrible experiments that we used to do to humans in mental institutions, and and I think, God, people, are we watching too much crime television or what? I don't know. Oh God, but. Yeah, so that's it for our community. So it certainly sparked a lot of conversation. But our new question of the pod is, what board game has educated you about a particular topic?
I have an interesting story on this.
Oh, okay.
I'll keep it short because
Go,
I
Jeff.
know we're running a bit long.
Yeah,
but
you're rambling.
when I started looking into the coin series from GMT, I tried to get more people into it to suffer with me, because the story on how I came across these games is rather entertaining. I started throwing rule books around and swearing at people and stuff. I didn't get it. I didn't understand how this was a game. That was before I saw The Matrix, mind you. And I tried to get Mitch into it. And so Mitch bought one of the games in the series called Fire in the Lake, which is quite notorious because it's one of the biggest games in the series. It's massive. It's about the war in Vietnam. It's big. It's complex. It's, And when he got it, I was like, messaging him every 5 minutes. Hey, Mitch, have you played the game yet? It's like, I'm setting it up now. It's like 4 hours later. Hey, Mitch, how's the game going? He's like, I'm one action in. And I'm like, what do you mean? It's been 4 hours. He's like, yeah, but the first card that came up was so interesting that I stopped playing and went to look it up and went down to this rabbit hole to learn all about the Vietnam War and stuff. So for me, the coin series from GMT has been a great prompt to dig into different parts of history and understand more about what brings a lot of the conflict in some of our societies, and how they almost escalate in a certain way, and you can sort of recognize the signs and things like that. They've been such great schools for me, if you like. And the second thing I'm going to mention is the Valiant Defense series by David Thompson. And that all started with me by playing Pavlov's House, which are much smaller sort of battles, if you like, from the wars, but told in a much more personal story. You have one building that's being defended, and the tokens are the photographs of the people that were actually in the building. So you develop these personal connections, and you can't help but go and, I'm just going to pause the game for 3.5 hours because I got to go and read all about this topic now. So I'm very grateful for these types of games that, teach me a lot about history.
Mm. But even if it's not history, because I'm often not going and looking at history books, but I mention a game like, for example, Distilled. Distilled, to me, which I sizzled a while ago, and to me I just love that game. It's almost like the perfect Kickstarter game to me. It smelt really good, but the rule book is so good with the way it has little bits and pieces about how whiskey's created, and when you're taking the cards, when you're during the game, you're taking there's a bit of a push your luck element, and you're taking one card off the top and one card off the bottom, which is like the head and the tail of when they do actually create whiskey. And I just love a good rule book that tells you those little facts, and I actually learned something from it.
Yeah, I think this is why it's so important that themes just don't get pasted on. And it's so important why there are topic experts and they research these things correctly, is because, I said I'm not a history buff. I'm not at all. And I take things at face value. And when I play a game and immerse myself in that world, that's what I'm going to think happened. And I want to read in the rule book if there's like, actually, we changed this slightly. Like, I find that fascinating because then you learn about what the reality was like. But even, Dana, to your point, it doesn't have to be a historical context. Even something like Wingspan. How much do we all then learn about birds? And suddenly you're looking at birds outside and you're like, I recognize that one from the game. And you remember the action that it has. And because you remember the action that you take in the game, you've learned something about the bird because it was so thematically tied in.
Yes.
And so that is just so powerful. Another example is the one Maggie mentioned earlier. So the Battle for Versailles is a fashion event that kind of changed the face of fashion, put US on the map. I knew nothing about it until this game that was pitched as a war-style game for 2 players, but with a fashion theme. And we're like, well, we don't really play war games, but a fashion theme we're in. And then I was reading about all the beautiful context they put in the rulebook, which then led me to watching documentaries about this event. And it just sparks that interest in a topic that I'd never been interested in before. And like, it's just another reason to love board games.
That was super fascinating and so well integrated into the game itself, where then every event card that you got, you're like, this is that thing that happened, and this is why it's important, or this is why it was, and this is why it has its, this particular power. So that was the one that I was gonna mention. Now I'm looking at the
I feel like
library.
We've learned so much.
Like
from
actually
games.
those Shogun no Katana, which was an interesting one because it's the game where that they did that thing that you just mentioned, where it's like there's several things in the game that are not historically accurate, but they call them out throughout the rule book and they give you the historical context. Like, well, we adjusted this because for gameplay, obviously this is a little bit easier, but in fact, at the time, this is the significance of this and this is how it would have happened. And I really appreciate that because you're kind of going on a bit of a history lesson along the way without it, beating you over the head with it. It's just,
It's actually even made me want to go. It's inspired, my travel decisions or my travel interests. For example, another game that comes to mind is Icky. I don't know if you've played that before, but the rule book is quite good at explaining these little traditions and why things are called certain things. And there's a particular thing that happens in the game where a fire comes through and can destroy particular storefronts. And I thought, what an odd thing to put into a game. It doesn't seem to fit at all. And then I quickly sort of looked it up. Or actually a friend did and then told me about it, so it wasn't me. But and it actually was a thing that fires did regularly come through and destroy these stores. And I just find that fascinating. And I think, I need to go there. I need to go there and just have a look at this place. And I just think it's, anyway, I just think it's fascinating. So,
Special mention, Lisboa by Vital Lacerda, with all of the little explanations on each side of the rulebook about how this whole thing unfolded in Lisbon and all the different bits of the game that sort of connect to the theme. I thought that was wonderful.
Now, what we'd like to do is just thank all the community for attending the Brisbane Game Day and all the volunteers and More Than Meeples. I don't know if you know the More Than Meeples store, but they had a pop-up store at the Brisbane Game Day, which was very well received. So thank you for your support. And, of course, I'd like to remind everyone about PlayCon. We're super excited about it. 12th to the 14th of July. We're so looking forward to it. And so please consider coming to PlayCon. If you'd like to support the podcast, you can always go to Patreon/Board Game BBQ and get access to exclusive podcast episodes. Also, there are plenty of ways to support the podcast without donating. And the easiest way is just to tell your friends or give us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Please also get involved in the Board Game BBQ community Facebook group. It's an amazing Facebook group, very active, very supportive. So please consider joining that. And also on Instagram, X, and YouTube. Now, the oath.
I'm okay. I'm covered for reasons that will become obvious in a minute.
Although, Dana, you just admitted that you had a game on yours for how many episodes? This is only our third episode, to be fair.
I like it.
All right.
I mean, so we had 2 years, though, for our last one.
Thank you for your honesty, Maggie. See? Okay, Amy and Maggie, your oath I'm just reminding you.
Yes.
Because
Oh, you don't need to remind us. It's sitting here in shrink, staring us down.
was Oathsworn.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yes, it was.
out of interest, why haven't you been able to play
You know, I went all in on the Kickstarter. Like, I got it all. So, and in the first round of crowdfunding too. So
Yeah.
I just backed this thing based on all of the campaign hype. I was probably part of that hype. I was like, yes, this is going to be epic. And then got it all before anybody else had it as well. And it's just sat there. And I think it's because there's so much of it that it's so intimidating. And then it's not usually the type of game we play. Having said that, we've since played Frosthaven. So in the time since we received Oathsworn. But we've been saving it for like a group. So I really want to play it with my brother in particular. He's really into D&D, and we thought this would be a great thing. But he lives in Queensland. And so it's like waiting for the perfect occasion, and it just keeps passing us by. And honestly, we just need to crack it open.
The two of us. Yeah.
Well, I only recently played it myself because I backed on the second campaign, and so it arrived a few months ago. But I only recently opened it and played it. I thought it was great. I've only played it once, but I thought it was much easier to get to the table than some of the other epic big campaign games. Like, for instance, I had Aeon Trespass Odyssey. I played that a couple of times, and then I sold it. Like, I thought it's just too big for me. It's just too big. If I ever go and retire in 20 years' time, maybe I'll have the time for it. But Oathsworn wasn't like that. I really thought it was really great. So.
Well, so Jamie Jolie, the designer, we met him at Gen Con, and then he said, "You've got 15 minutes, sit down and I'll teach you the main mechanics." And so he actually taught us how to play. And we still
no excuse.
We have no excuse.
I mean, it was it seemed pretty interesting for the 15 minutes that we played of it. So, I am looking forward to it. It just hasn't.
Yeah, it has that cool like mechanic with the cards and the way that the timing of the cycling through.
That's all great, but I know you're trying to avoid this next question. So, are you going to swear another oath to go on top of this, or are you going to kind of stick with let's finish the one we already have?
It depends. Are we back on in another 2 years?
Probably.
I don't know if we're going to give you that much, but
we will commit. In the next 2 years, we may crack open Oathsworn.
I am expecting like some kind of random Facebook post or something from you guys, and there's literally like pot plants on top of it or something.
That grew naturally.
Yeah, that's right. And they're all
out of the box.
flowing down over the box, and it's actually just turned into a piece of furniture.
Yeah.
It is holding up other games right now.
It is. Yes. I mean, it's sturdy and really big, so it makes for a good foundation for
coffee table, anything. Yeah. No, don't feel bad. I have failed. I've only been on the podcast for a short time, and I've already got failures against my name, so I wouldn't feel too bad.
What's your new one? Because I'm excited about this Festival of Dana and what's happening in 2024.
So my old oath was Weimar, and I think I'm finished it. I have to get we have to get rid of that now. I've done it. But I had another oath because I failed. Oh God! Because I failed the Weimar, I put another game as my oath and made it even worse, and that was Cloudspire. Okay. Oh God. Anyway. These games are really hard. That's all I could say. They're just really hard.
It is.
But I did play Cloudspire. I did. I spent an awful lot of time looking at the player aid, and it was a really difficult game. It is not my type of game really at all. It's a MOBA game. What does that stand for again? Does anybody remember? I can't remember. Anyway, I should have it open, but I haven't got it open. But anyway, it's a tower defense war game, and it was something completely different to, once again, what I would normally play. It's not the type of game to go with a cheese platter at all. No.
Requires full concentration.
That's right. Yeah, it requires full concentration. But I can see, like you, Maggie, how you can still respect the effort that has gone into the design of it and how clever it is and how it would appeal to other people. I have a lot of respect for people who do play these games. And I think I've mentioned that before. People who can learn the rules to these games, because this game has a lot of rules. I don't know if you played it, Def, but there's a lot of intricate.
I have a lot.
Yeah, a lot of. Would you agree that there's a lot of intricate rules?
It's very, very dense. It's one of the densest games I've played.
Actually, I could use that word instead of dumb next time when I'm describing myself. Dense is a much nicer word. So, but anyway, so I did play it, and I'm glad I played it. But it's probably not the game for me going forward. But I'm glad I played it.
Well done.
So my next one is, and I'm trying to play games that are different, but also going through some of the Patreons and playing one of their top 10 games.
Oh, nice.
So this one is Megan Moore from Sydney, and her number one game is Beyond the Sun. Mm-hmm. So has anybody played that game at all?
Yes.
No?
Yeah.
Oh,
I have. Mm-hmm.
Oh, any good?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very.
I like it. I really like it.
Yeah. So that's my new oath. So,
Very good.
Yeah.
I think you'll like that one. Good tech tree combos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the end of this podcast, sadly, and we'll have to say goodbye to you, and we'll see you in another 2 years.
Thank you so much.
Well, hopefully we'll see you at PlayCon.
Yes.
Yes, we'll see you at PlayCon.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us, guys. It was a great pleasure talking with you again.
Thank you.
Absolute pleasure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, bye now.
Take care. Really impressed by how you dribbled around my oath. So thanks for that. I thought I'd raise it after you finished. That was really funny.
Oh, shit.
That was really funny.
You can edit that in, can't you?
Do you want to edit it in? Do you want to do it? You could just put a little bit on there.
I didn't do it, so it doesn't matter.
I thought you said you were covered. Or you're lying.
Yeah, I meant Amy and Maggie haven't done theirs for 2 years. I'll be fine.
Okay, sorry.
No, that's okay.
Shocker.